Hello, good morning, all. Good morning, members all around Nigeria and across the world. Thank you for joining us for the 13th edition of CITN TAXATION and You. We want to try to thank you for being with us for the past 1 year. We marked our 1 year anniversary last episode, and this happened to be the beginning of a new cycle. And I'm so happy to have with us present here the world renowned, right? The world renowned, Madam Cool Down, and we know you better. The world renowned Dr. Titi Fowoko. Dr. Titi, welcome to our program.
Thank you.
Yeah, for the world to know, I've been hunting you, but over the year, trying to get you on this program, but your schedule is tight, working with the the richest black man in the world, so we can understand. So Dr. Titi Fowoko is from Dangote Industries Limited. That needs an introduction in terms of tax and strategic and tax and the likes, right? So we have the right person here. So our topic for today, for this episode, is using progressive tax reforms to drive stronger Nigerian economy. Using progressive tax reform to drive Nigerian economy. So we'll be looking at what can be done, and that is why we have Dr. Fowoko here. She's going to be talking from a whole lot of industry experience, a whole lot of consulting experience, a whole lot of the business side experience, and also the tax, legislative experience in terms of processing and administration. So we couldn't have any other person other than Dr. Titi. Dr. Titi, thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Doctor, I want to find. I just want to know now. Can we balance? This drive revenue generation, tax a moving ant, tax a standing tree, tax anything that happens to shake his body, and all of that. We did need drive for revenue generation, and we need to balance the tax welfareism for the taxpayer. What do you have to say about this?
Thank you, Oji. We all know that tax is the most sustainable source of income for government, revenue generation wide. And from the way things are happening in this country, we know that we have been using tax revenue to fund government expenditure, even the allocation to the states. We have that history. But the key thing is that while government is driving tax revenue generation, there is also expectation on the side of the citizens that their lives will be better.
Sure.
And we know what is currently happening. I am an advocate of voluntary tax compliance.
Okay.
At the same time, I also expect that as a citizen, the government will obey the social contract. And that is, if I pay my tax, voluntarily comply, pay the tax as the law says. I'm not sure we have started taxing trees anyway. But if I pay my tax, I expect that some basic social needs of the citizens, government needs to take that up. But where you have businesses paying taxes and they're also doing a lot to make the lives of people within their business environment better, it means that government has actually shifted all its responsibility and the equity is not there. Fine, I know that our national tax policy has defined tax to mean that whatever government say you pay, just paraphrasing it without demand for any direct benefits. But be as it may, even as I agree that I have to fulfill my obligations, Nigerians need to fulfill their obligations, businesses need to fulfill their obligations, we expect that on the long run, there are some critical aspects that is government part of it.
Okay.
Like housing, education, employment, some other basic things. Healthcare, yeah, because that's what the citizens will make them to be very good at doing what they're supposed to do. And why are people running away to UK? We always ask that question. It's not that the taxes are lower.
Okay.
Yeah, but there are some things that they get with, they believe that if the country can make this available, we have lots of resources in this country, but the way we are spending the resources is what people are actually not really too good about. So I believe that in as much as we collect the taxes, encourage tax payment, government should also try to make the citizens to feel that they are part of this nation by ensuring that the basic things that they need, they can get it without laboring and struggling and living in that hardship.
Wow, thank you, Dr. Titi. Thank you so much. Because we need to start with having the need to strike that balance.
Yes.
To ensure it's a win-win, or what we call inclusive common good for all.
That's it.
So, Dr. Titi, when you say the current tax system, will you say what we have on ground is fair to businesses? You sit up there at the head of a global company, right? And you've passed through from the oil and gas to the manufacturing to all of this. Do you say our current tax system is in quote fair, right? And that was the best way to read fair to businesses or companies.
Okay, I would not say that is unfair. Let me come from that angle. I won't say it's unfair, but what I would say is that we are just getting towards what tax system should be in terms of what we have now. But I believe that it could be better. But you see, there should be like a balance also. As much as we try to bring more people into the tax, I still know some people are not still in the tax net. And businesses, corporates are already in the tax net, quite a lot of them. We still have so many sectors. The informal sector is still there. We even have individuals, high net worths and things like that who have not come in. So there's still room for expanding the tax base and bringing more people into the net. But as it is today, coupled with the recent exchange, foreign exchange harmonization that has happened, a lot of business, in fact, the skyrocketing of foreign exchange started sometimes last year and then started going up and it's not coming down. Now, just by May 29, we had another subsidy is gone. And you know the impact. So I will say that the tax system we have now has evolved and is evolving. It's not really that it has had any negative impact, but the economic situation of the country coupled with drive for taxation is not making businesses really to find it funny. Because let me look at the current Finance Act. There's some things that have been amended in those acts, which will now make businesses to say, wow, more cash outflow. And those are things that businesses are looking at, that if we are struggling with FX, with subsidy, and this Finance Act is coming, then it means that we have more pain to go through. So I believe that we need to look at the economic situation, even as much as we're looking at tax reform, so that one does not, at the end of the day, cause more pain for the business environment than is expected.
Oh, thank you. So that comes to the next question. So it shows the issue of, the ease of doing business. You know, sometimes we come out with these laws and all of that, but there's a lot of dis-ease, what we call to be dis-ease, right? Which is where the word to disease is from, right? There's a lot of uneasiness, right, in terms of business and all of that. From tax perspectives now, from what you said, it's showing that we are not really there yet in terms of ease of doing business from tax perspective of companies and businesses.
I won't say we are not really there. We are not where we are proposing to be. Let me put it that way. If you look at the recent changes that have been happening, in 2019, we had this review of the tax laws because we've noticed the small businesses needs to survive. And with that, we had some exemption from income tax, from education tax, some other reviews of Pioneer and things like that. I think the government before this administration have started good work on ease of doing business, and the finance review, the review of the acts, have also tried to complement that by giving relief for some parts of the business sector, like the small and medium, reducing the rates for medium. But we also have to look at ease of paying taxes.
Okay.
Because if you talk about ease of doing business, part of doing business is paying taxes.
Correct.
And I know that we've reviewed this. I would give it to the FIRS and even some of the states. They've done a lot in going towards automation,
okay,
digitalization. I believe we can do better. We can get to a better position, but we are still not yet there. For instance, we know sometime last few months back, we were talking about Promax. The FIRS responded positively, and there's been a review, upgrading, updating of the Promax system. So the tax system we have now is working towards achieving ease of doing business. Also, there needs to also be focused on ease of paying taxes. Though I can pay tax from the comfort of my room, but I'm not sure that what we have now is robust enough. I believe it can be better worked on. We know the states have tax filing, online tax filing platform. I'll give you a specific example. When we use this e-tax platform to file taxes, If somebody has not gone on e-tax to register, when you file the return, that person's name is automatically not there. So you see a gap in the tax clearance when you eventually get it. So I believe something can be done. These complaints are being made anyway to develop this. Even on Promax, the penalty regime, you know, I believe it's for us to comply. But we have issues around withholding tax credits.
Okay.
So that's a big chunk of it. People now say, I have credits that is not reflecting. So we have to now get manual intervention or intervention on the Promax side to get it done. We are moving forward. I give it to the tax authorities. I give it to government on tax administration reform. But I think we need to make it easy for taxpayers as they are paying. They also would not be in pain to get what belongs to them. And I think there should be some alignment along that line also. Even as much as we're looking at ease of doing business, we look at ease of paying taxes, we look at convenience, we look at simplicity. Because these are all canons of taxation that you expect.
Well, thank you so much. It's important that we hope our members and other Nigerians out there who are the senior management position in various MDAs are listening, because the end of this program is, so it's not just a talk show. It's all to come up with, you know, valid nuggets, right? Tax administrators, you know, various directors and, you know, PAM sets up high there in the agencies can draw that from and, you know, make contribution on how to make Nigeria, the tax system better, you know, as it were. And so with this background set, can we now go, in your words, what would you consider to be tax reforms in Nigeria's circumstance?
Tax reform is more of a fiscal strategy that government adopts, and that is to review the tax system, looking at the tax laws, looking at our tax policy, looking at our tax law, and looking at tax administration. What are the things that currently are archaic, are still? What do we need to revise? What are the portion of our laws that are ambiguous, are not easy to apply, is not simplified, and all with the aim of making it comply with the current trend of doing business. For instance, COVID came in 2019/2020, changed the way we do things. And after that, we've seen changes in the way tax is done. That was when we started filing online seamlessly. There was task on the tax authorities to make sure that their online platform are working. During COVID was also when we also started filing processes with tax appeal tribunal online. Okay. And you can be rested. So I believe that for me, tax reform is looking at the entirety of the tax system and how do we make sure that we make necessary amends, we make it comply with the current situation of the economy, current situation in the global environment. We have moved into digitalization. It's all part of reform process. And it's because the world is now a global village. I don't need to be in UK to work in UK. Okay. And that means the tax regime must also be complying with how do we ensure that while I'm sitting in Nigeria and I'm working in the UK, my taxes or whatever is due to the government is collected in a seamless manner. So tax reform to me is government looking at how do we make sure that our tax system complies with the reality of today and everyone that is citizen is able to enjoy the benefits of complying and paying taxes. And that includes government making social amenities available to citizens at less stressful cost. So that's what I think tax reform is looking at. Because tax revenue generation is for something, government expenditure. What are those? How is it spent? It's also part of the reform.
Oh, great, great. Now, I want you to speak from the business side of things. Now, let's say we are the CEO of the company. You know, those who get the point of paying the taxes. Okay. From that side, because we're about driving a stronger Nigerian economy, what will business people be saying? What do you think you'll be saying in terms of these are the specific way? 1, 2, 3, we think. Okay. You know, the tax reform will be meaningful. You know, they're not from that perspective. They're going to tell them want to create jobs. Yeah. Want to invest
in fact, for the business environment, one of the things we look at is tax reform will drive our compliance. Because, for instance, now it makes us to review. We have to review our processes.
Okay.
We have to ensure we have tax control in place. Our risk management must be top notch. We cannot afford to pay penalties. So tax reform is making every business now to start looking at how to ensure you have what we call zero tolerance to non-compliance. And that is no penalty payment. For us, for instance, if there's a deadline, if the deadline is 21st, the internal deadline should be 17 or 16. Okay. So that between 16 and 21st, there's no how you will meet up. So processes are being looked at, tax strategy has to be reviewed. Then the value chain has to also be looked into, because now with the recent reforms, there's something around when you import from non-African countries with Financial 2023, you have to pay some levy. So we have to start looking at our supply chain. Okay. So a lot is happening in the business environment with tax reform. We are looking at automation, so that as we are asking you for information, we are also being able to generate online real-time information. So that's one of the things the businesses is doing. They have to look at the ERP. Does it meet with the requirements of tax obligations? So a lot is good, and this will come with investment in technology, investment in people, because you need to have people that understand what the tax law is asking for, what the tax administration requires. You need people that's knowledgeable. Then when you're doing your planning, you have to be more strategic. You cannot be doing aggressive planning again with the way reforms are going. So a lot is hanging on the side of businesses to ensure that as these reforms are coming, we are also participatory. We are able to say, look, government, this type of reform you're looking at is actually not going to work for the business environment, not until after the thing has been done. We should be part of it. And these are the things that is driving in the business. For instance, now with the withdrawal of investment allowance, manufacturers, we are the mercy of the government, because the chunk of the assets of manufacturing business is plant and machinery. And withdrawal of that means that we have to start looking at our investment profile for CapEx. So these are all things, and you cannot do without this machinery. So there may be some engagements further on this, but I believe that tax reform is actually making a lot of businesses to check their process, to check their tax risk management, to check their tax strategy, to also understand how it impacts on their business overall, coupled with other economic effects like foreign exchange sourcing for importation, like the transport cost, because now the cost has increased with the subsidy. Transport has increased. You have to look at your staff. You have to now start thinking about whether our staff will now start using staff bus. You have more staff buses to commute them, or increase the allowance for transport. You know, these are also costs that affects the business. So everything happening in terms of tax reform must also align with economic realities. And that's making businesses to go back to their drawing board and start with their corporate strategy and be sure that are we still on course with all these tax reforms that are going in.
Wow, thank you, Dr. Bama. Thank you for that. And then what I'm going to come with, that has to do with the current situation of where we are, right, as a country, right? So the current situation. Thank you for what you said, and I'm very, very great to have you and to get the proper answer. Now, something just came up I want to ask you. It is based on what we have, what we are suffering now, our country, the forex.
Yeah.
Do we think, now without bias, right, for the common good of governments, businesses, and the people that businesses serve, now can we say, what can we do? The foreign exchange exposure is not the fault of businesses.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't have done anything. I opened a letter of credit on day one, and the 15, the exchange rate has moved. Even when I got to a hedge, by going to something cute to do a future level, but stuff really happen, right? Okay, I did not hedge. I don't say sometimes here on credit, I'm going to pay you, but the exchange rate keep moving, creating automatic exchange losses for Nigerian businesses that are indebted to foreign suppliers. So what can government do to encourage the business? Because manufacturers. Can we now say, you know, what can how do we put it? You know, sometimes we know that this law is unrealized, and all of that. Do you think what can government do practically beyond the social deduct it and all of that? If there's something government can do around this FX negative exposure for the young manufacturers, to help them stable, right? And I'm going to produce locally, employing people and also computing at least as they can, where we just make better of products and services.
Thank you for that question. Short of saying that, you said I should not be biased. I'll try not to be biased, but I would have expected that by now government should have looked at some tax relief on this FX thing, because, well, let me also say that we're just having a switch in government, so they are battling with a lot. But I think this is critical because it's not the making of the businesses. It's not the making of the businesses. And if you look at half-year report of some businesses, you know what we're saying. So I just want to reflect back to during COVID time. You know, there are some countries that they do some things not because it's convenient for them, but because they look at the impact on the economy and the people. A country like Germany, during the COVID, they did a lot. Tax waiver, tax this, tax that. They even decided that nobody should pay taxes on their salaries and things like that. So I would have loved where government would be able to come out and say, fine, looking at the half-year performance and the impact that is not us, then give some tax relief. Because once you talk about unrealized exchange loss, it means that you are going to have to pay the tax. Because that's what it means. And it's something that crystallizes. Whether this will fade off by end of the year, we cannot say. Because even the way it's happening now, it looks the exchange rate is going higher. I don't think we've come below 500 as it is. We are moving from 6, we are moving to 7, 750 and going to 800 and likes. So I'm just saying that government needs to look at where this is pinching, especially the manufacturing sector. And it's not only manufacturing that is this affecting. We have even some other that are into technology who also rely on FX for importation and everything. So they have to look at the critical sectors and the impact of this exchange rate and give some relief. It is not a lifetime relief. It's just for them to stabilize and be able to get back to floating. They can float again. So I guess, I believe government can look at this. Amidst all intervention, okay, they are promising refinery will work and this and that, but they should also look at those who are still working and they are willing to work and then see how they can help. And then looking at the fact that employment is critical. Quite a number of businesses are also having issues now with this brain drain, Jackpot syndrome. Quality is affected and things like that. I was joking with somebody, I said, GT changed their app. That with the new app, I don't even understand how to do transfer. And it's not that I don't know, but it's not friendly, you know. So I want to believe that the people that are really behind the initial app have left and the new people are trying to come up with innovation. So I would look forward to government at least giving some reliefs on the tax side, because you have increased education tax this same year, exchange rate issue this same year, fuel subsidy this same year, and everything will sit down with the manufacturing setup, which are the people that really employ quite a number of people. And we don't want people to be out of businesses. So I look forward to government having some intervention on the tax side. So I'm talking about tax for now because I'm not a Forex expert.
Thank you so much, Dr. Okay, we're going to open our studio up. Please, it's time for you to call in, ask a question, make a contribution. Let's keep it on the topic. We're talking about using tax reform somebody to drive from the Nigerian economy. That's the focus. So let's try to keep to the focus of the topic. So please, if you have a question, you may use the palm icon. The palm icon is on the device so that we can call on you to ask a question or make your contribution. Use the palm icon. When you use the palm icon, we'll call on you, you're mute, and then you speak and ensure your background is not does not have any distracting sound behind us. So the floor is open. Please feel free, raise use your palm icon, let us recognize you, and then we go ahead to So let's take the question, the written text. This is from Madam Adibula. She's asking, tax relief,
for critical sector.
Tax relief for critical sector of the economy is a fantastic idea that we hope the government can look into. Thank you, Dr. Tito. That recommendation should alluding to the fact that government need to all really look at some of the things you said and you are saying. So let us please go and see whether there are written comments. Team, help us go gently. Let's take okay. So this is from Dr. Definitely former and Dr. Titi for hitting the nail properly. The three contracts are not adhered to. Government of Nigerians are now actually fulfilling their own parts of the contract, and no penalties are charged to them for such defaults. But the city of Nigeria has objected to penalties and interest on each of defaults from their parts. Okay, that's from Dr. Lady before we alluded to some of the points you raised. So if you have a question, please put the pan icon. We'll call you up and you go ahead and make your comments. Team, excuse me, do we have any messages on question? Okay, so this recommendation, we have one recommendation all through. Commendation all through. Thank you for the recommendation. These are appreciated. So we're going to come back to you and to ask more questions, seek a question or to ask a conclusion. Doctor, in Nigeria, if you look at examples, most of them come to the direct tax. And we talk about some of the tax nets. I said they can't see them. For people who are not, traditional informal, but they make income. You can't just get them from nowhere and all that. So that raises the issue of direct and indirect tax. Given the way we behave as a people, our tax culture, as a tax culture in Nigeria that we have currently, will you recommend that what you have to say in terms of using the direct tax approach or using direct tax approach, or to use both as we have them? What do you think? People are not in the regular paid job and are not companies they can track. And they're quite massive. They're quite massive. So what do you think? We'll share your thoughts.
Okay. I will start by saying that the easiest tax to collect is indirect tax.
Okay.
Easiest and simplest. Let me put it that way. I put simplest because there should be mechanism to make it simple. And why did I say indirect tax is the easiest to collect? We all consume. Okay. Whether you consume goods or services, we consume. And that is why, if you look at the revenue generation for 2022, VAT is about 2.4, customs about 2.6 trillion.
Wow. And
and these are indirect taxes. I know income tax is also within that range. But when we used to have oil money, that's when you see that huge direct tax coming, because you add petroleum profit tax to come. But the oil money is not there. We had this COVID problem, the pressure in the international crude oil markets, and the prices fell, and even people were begging to come and buy, So now the indirect tax model was the crux of the National Tax Policy 2017. Okay. That why don't you let's see how we simplify the tax law, simplify tax collection, tax administration, such that you can collect this indirect tax easily, and you reduce your rate on direct tax. You reduce the rate, get more people, and I want to believe that we're going back to looking at that national tax for 2017, because that sets a pace which I believe we should be taking any reform from, because that's been a background laid. So going the way of indirect tax will help us to collect easier. But we need to also not make it to be overly punitive for people. For instance, if government has appointed someone as a collection agent, especially for VAT,
okay,
you are given a mandate. Okay, you've collected on our behalf, you must remit by so time. I expect that you comply. That's my own expectation. But if you don't, you know what happens now. Sure. You get penalized. But it's easier to collect. Now I deal with my bank. Before I do jack, the bank has deducted this money and is available. When I'm levied with some other form of indirect tax, I have no choice but to pay. So I see it, the two taxes have to go to continue. But I'm seeing the revenue generation from indirect tax is easier to administer than the directors, because directors has to do with voluntary compliance. If I don't comply, if I don't declare properly, you cannot get the correct amount of tax. Self-assessment is in both cases, but in this case of direct tax, I must have shown that I have profits, and I always have a slogan: where there's no tax, there is no income, there's no tax. If I don't collect salary, I don't pay tax. If I don't make profits, I cannot pay tax, even though there's minimum tax provision, which is 0.5% of the gross income less whatever adjustment. So I think the indirect tax will give more, but government should make it simple, easy, and people will be willing to be an agent. Not that you're an agent, and for being an agent, that you're not being paid, and you are punished. So I think the two should run, but we should encourage people on more of voluntary compliance, so that we can even have an increase in contribution from direct tax, because there's a lot of opportunity there also, if we all do the right thing and government shows us that they value our voluntary compliance by making sure that we don't spend our money to fix our road, buy a generator, do our burglary, do security, do everything. It's something.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Titi. Now, let's look at, you know, we have the finance that, okay, our team has been awesome. We have two of our members who have a question to ask or permission to make. Let's start with Mr. Tolulope Adedikwe. Pardon me if you're a doctor, but I'm saying Mr. I'm not reading the name I have before me. Yes, Mr. Tolulope Adedikwe, if you're mute and back.
Yes, thank you, sir. Morning, our presenter. Can we hear me, sir?
I hear you.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Titi, thank you very much, madam. I'm really enjoying your presentation, and I do hope to meet you one-on-one very shortly. My question really is that, you know, during your presentation, and not just now, I've been hearing how, you know, some policies that government will need to do this, government will need to do that with respect to tax policies. So I keep wondering, is it that tax professionals are not usually being consulted when tax policies are being made? Doesn't government involve tax professionals with respect to tax policies when they are being formulated? Because I keep wondering, if they have been doing, and how come we'll now be saying that government should do this, government should look at that? So I am now of the opinion that what is going on? Is it that we are not usually consulted when tax policies are being made? Please, ma, help us.
Okay, so let me also the lady from Algeria, so that I can take them minutes. Yeah, Dr. Berry, deploy yourself. You can mute and speak, ma'am. Dr. Berry, are you there?
Let me take that.
Okay, Dr.
Okay.
Go ahead with that.
Let me quickly respond by saying that you know, I would say that in terms of consulting tax professionals, that has improved. Before the Buhari administration, we seem not to be at the forefront. But I know that with relationships that has been developed during that administration with the Minister of Finance, we do get involvement. And what we are just saying is we now have a new government. So we don't want government to shift focus and jettison the fact that they are tax professionals, but to work with them. I must give it to this current government. They have identified one of us to chair the tax reform agenda of the government. And I remember that when the new government came in, President Bola Tinubu says he's going to look into multiplicity of taxes. If that's not the only issue that we have when it comes to tax era, but they've started in the right platform. What we are discussing now is also to give an agenda or our own expectation of all the reforms that government is probably looking at. Because what we've had in the past is that government expenditure is not well allocated. And this is coming from tax revenue generation. Because if you look at, for instance, education, we didn't really give that. I don't think we've given enough consideration to education, even in the allocation of the budget. Overheads take so much. Our school fees are now increased. So these are things that we are actually saying that as we are having a new government, involvement of the tax practitioners should increase. We should be able to come to the forefront. And with one of us being appointed, we expect that we have more input into what is coming up. So in the past, we've not had that recognition as CITN, in terms of that. Maybe other bodies have been recognized ahead of CITN. But now I believe that with CITN having a member represented in the review committee, yes, then we should be able to put in our input and say, government, you may have done this, fine, good work, but we think you should be able to do this and do this and do this, and lend our voice to whatever government is doing. So we need to be seen that we are able to provide that advisory role for government.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Dr. Chipo. Thank you so much. Guys, Israel, may you unmute and speak. Mr. Israel. Yes, go ahead.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me, please?
Good morning, sir. Go ahead, please.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Titi, for your presentation and the discussion so far. Please, I just want to ask, during your discussion, you mentioned that you so much also believe in voluntary compliance, and which I also share your view. But what I just want to just give a kind of words on is, how can this voluntary compliance be, the culture of this voluntary compliance, how can it be spread among taxpayers? Because, taxpayers will always say that because government is not doing this, is not doing that, I'm not going to pay and all that. How do we ensure that taxpayers are encouraged to pay, irrespective of the fact that, okay, government is not doing this, that is why I'm not paying tax? I need a words on that, please.
Okay. Thank you very much for that question. I always say that the cost of non-compliance is very, very punitive. And one of the things I try to say is, if you don't comply, the law has provision for penalties. Now, when you are penalized, the cost of that penalty is even more than what it will take you to comply. So the cost of non-compliance is more expensive. And if you don't prevent that non-compliance and you are now punished for it, then you cannot blame anybody. I always try to, you have to come low. You don't have to enforce some of these things. You have to explain why compliance is necessary, why it is important. And that comes from the fact that if there's no sin, if there's no law, there's no sin. But once there's a law, what you're going to be doing is to encourage them. You cannot force anybody. You can take a horse to the river, but you can't force the horse to drink water. But if you come from the point of view of, if you fail to comply, there is punishment for it. And you would not want to go through the pain of having to run helter-skelter to pay penalty. I'll give you an instance. You delay in paying your VAT. Your VAT liability maybe is 100,000. But as you reach 12 midnight of the deadline for remittance, filing and everything, 10% of that 100,000 crystallizes. And you are struggling to survive as a business. How will you pay 100,000 when you are not having 10% of that on top? And apart from that, you have interest at 19% or whatever rate is applied. So adding interest plus penalty to your principal increases your headache. So why would you want to have more headache when the little headache you have has not gone? So that's the angle I bring it from. And it will give you rest of mind. If you don't meet your deadline, you'll be able to sleep. Because you'll be saying, hey, Pro Max, so 10% penalty. And by the time you are crossing, your mind will be up. You'll be running, calling this one, calling down. You won't have peace of mind. So why don't you just try to do the one you can do? If you sincerely know your business is not doing well, I believe that FIRS is not that bad that you cannot approach them, or the states. You can actually get into some engagement. I'm not doing well. This reality of business, you have to be open. But you see, there's this level of distrust. There's this level of distrust, until when we remove this lack of trust between the two parties.
Yeah.
Tax authority does not trust taxpayer. Taxpayer does not trust tax authority. And because they believe that, they will tell you something. And that distrust, I will tell you, it is a breach of trust on any side is what is causing all this. Despite the fact that we know government has a part to play, we also should try. You see, when we do things right, we can talk. We may say they are not hearing us, but I believe that some of the things happening in this country is because some people have been talking. It's not because if you keep quiet, then nobody will hear your voice. So let's keep encouraging them. Let's keep telling them that complying will give them peace of mind and they'll be able to sleep well. And they should just avoid any form of headache that will cause them to have high blood pressure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, on this, my question, before I go to my question, there's a prelude. I want to officially congratulate our colleague, Mr. Taiwo Yedele, STI, the colleague friend of the Institute, and, my father knows Bob about him. So, of course, we want to congratulate him on the appointment as the Chief Presidential Chair for the Committee Center to look at the tax reform in Nigeria generally. And it was in our program here, if you recall, it was in our program generally this year. So congrats out there, Mr. Taiwo Yedele, STI, for the appointment. You speak to power, that is power. So we wish you all the best.
It's close to power, not yet in power.
Yeah, close to power, right? So we wish you all the best. From all of us here, from CITN, we wish you a successful outing and a glorious conclusion towards the assignment. So that brings your question, Madam. If there are specifics, we mentioned that this committee being chaired by our colleague. If you are to tell them just 1, 2, in terms of build reforms and all of that, what will you tell them? If you are to tell them, say, this is where we are. Let's leave the all of this long analysis, all of this very futuristic, that this is our reality. What to be 1 or 2 things, just chip into it and say, guys, check out what this is, and then why doing your stuff? What will you say to me?
Okay, let me tell our viewers that I've been thinking about this type of question. And I sat down and I said, Titi, if they would ask you this type of question, what will you tell them? And that is something that I was expecting.
Okay.
I think if I would talk to Taiwo, we worked together, we were colleagues. We were former colleagues in PW.
Wow.
But I won't say more than that. He knows. We worked together closely up until when I left the firm.
Okay.
Now, I thought about this question that might come up. And I said, and I've listed some of the things that I would tell him.
Okay.
He may not take them in full, but he may look at them. The first that I have here is the VAT law, and application and administration. I think what I would say is that we should follow the general principles of VAT to consider the different economic activities where value is really added to the consumers. Because I know our VAT is not robust like the UK. Yeah. I got a time that somebody said we had some expense and they said, oh, you can claim your expenses in the UK, your VAT on the expense. And so it's possible. But here we are doing strictly input outputs. So which I think they should look at and see how, because now we are in a global village. Things are not the same as our general Nigerian way of doing things. They should look into things around the VAT penalties, should be graduated. At least according to your offense, not flat. They should look at some thresholds and then maybe things around VAT reform mechanism. It should not be that we are afraid to come for refund when we know we have issues with refund. The way by the time you hear the process, FIRS may not like me for this. By the time you hear the process for refund, you will not want to. And then more simplification of the VAT administration procedures. Even though we are using ProMax, we should look at how to simplify more so that everybody is clear. We know what to do. There's clarity, there's sustainability and things like that. Then secondly, there should be some tax amnesty. On the softer side, you know why I'm saying amnesty? People are still outside the tax net. And the last amnesty program brought a lot of people into the tax net, which made FIRS to do audits, and they got a lot of money. So I believe that this amnesty should not be the one that you are bringing people to punish them, but bring them to genuinely comply, confess their sins and go and sin no more. I'm just pleading for that. There should be an holistic review of tax expenditure profile of the country in terms of, why don't we eliminate wastages? Do we need everything? Why don't we consider targeted industries for economic development and sectoral tax incentives, so that at least we can use that to meet some obligations and expectations? Then we should talk about reforms generally for fiscal sustainability, which with relation to management of revenue and expenditure of government and ensuring transparency and ease of monitoring. We must be able to know whether government is actually doing what they told us in terms of their expenditure. And then also the tax law and administration should be further simplified. You know, I know in 2010, there was a plan to reform the tax law, to do a review of the tax laws. And we didn't know where that ended. It ended into pockets of amendments, which I think is not helping. But if we can look at all the laws, we seem to have some overlaps between one law and the other. If we can look at all the laws and then the administration of the laws, and then see how can we make it to be more something that is implementable, and also there's minimal bureaucratic intervention in this process. Then tax reform proposal should focus on and be geared towards benefits of the society, because this is the high point of fiscal sustainability. If the society, the citizens are not benefiting from reform, then it's as good as you've not done anything, you've not impacted their life. So I think this will be my own suggestion to my brother and my friend and my former colleague. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. What a beautiful way to wrap it up. Thank you so much. I'm going to hear it. I'm going to put this on the team as well. Of course, party, right? So we thank God. Thank you for the well-elaborated points. Very specific for you to look at. On this note, we want to thank our production team out there, thank our cameraman, thank the restaurant chief executive of the Chairman of Nigeria, and also, most importantly, thank our Dr. Titi Falcon. And our brand A, these are brand A CITN member, and she's a council member also for information. For those who thank you for coming. It has been tight, right? But God did a miracle, and you are here.
Yeah.
You did a lot of journey, but we're happy to have you.
Thank
so
you.
Thank you all for joining us from around Nigeria and across the world for this 13th edition. Please take note of the event we have for August. The MPT will mention the Benin Asaba and Abuja, and in Northern Region, physical MPTP coming up in Kaduna on the last of this month, Thursday, August 1st. Let's go to join. For those who are student members or independent members, visit our website to ask all of the questions and to join us. And for those who want to check out our other events, visit CITN.org to follow up and do all of those things you need to do. So thank you all so much. Thank you, Dr. Falcon, once again.
Thank you.
So goodbye, everyone. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.